On June 16, 2008, Caylee Anthony left her parents' home with her 2-year-old daughter, Caylee, claiming they were visiting a nanny. But after 31 days without any sign of Caylee, a shocking discovery would ignite a huge media frenzy. Everyone who watched the subsequent trial was shocked by the behavior of Caylee Anthony. How could a mother be so irresponsible? Welcome to Bad Things. Let's discover what most likely happened to little Caylee Anthony. Early life. Caylee Anthony was born on March 19, 1986, in Warren, Ohio. She was the only daughter of George and Cindy Anthony, who later moved a family to Orlando, Florida, when Caylee was just a child. Caylee also had an older brother by the name of Lee. The two kids spent their early years in a normal suburban neighborhood. As a child, she was described as lively and imaginative, but slightly prone to seeking attention. She often found herself caught in the middle of her parents' disputes, which may have caused her to develop a habit of lying. This is something that she would continue in her adult life. Caylee attended school in Orlando and was known for being social and outgoing. As she entered her teenage years, she began to rebel against authority. She craved independence and freedom. Her friends described her as a fun-loving person who occasionally engaged in risky behaviors. Caylee graduated from high school in 2004. After graduation, she attended college for a short time, but did not complete her degree. She began working various jobs, including a position at Universal Studios. Becoming a mother. Soon after high school, at the age of 19, Caylee became pregnant with Caylee Anthony. At first, she tried to hide the pregnancy from her family, but later accepted it when she began showing at around 6 months. The pregnancy was unplanned, and she really struggled with the idea of becoming a mother at a young age. It is unknown who the father was. It could have been her old boyfriend or her fiancé at the time, but the exact person is unclear. Her parents also prioritized her health and did not pester her about the child's father. On August 9, 2005, Caylee's beautiful daughter Caylee Marie Anthony was born, and with her parents' help and support, she eventually embraced motherhood. However, the pressures of being a new mom soon began to weigh heavily on her. As Caylee grew into a toddler, Caylee faced the true reality of parenting responsibilities while trying to maintain her social life. Caylee's relationship with her own parents also faced challenges, as they had concerns regarding her parenting skills and her partying lifestyle. While Caylee loved her daughter, she also craved independence and a carefree attitude, causing her to prioritize parties and outings over taking care of Caylee. Since she got pregnant earlier, she wanted to enjoy life like other people her age were. Her friends described her as someone who enjoyed being the life of the party. Caylee's disappearance. On June 16, 2008, the family had just finished celebrating Father's Day. That morning, Caylee told her parents that she was taking Caylee to visit her nanny, Zenaida Zani Fernandez Gonzalez. George testified that he saw Caylee leave the house at 12:50 p.m. with Caylee as he kissed her goodbye. As they departed, Caylee assured her parents that everything was fine and that she would be back soon. But sadly, Caylee did not return home with Caylee. That was the last time her grandparents would see her. Caylee began a month-long period of deception. She told her mother that she and Caylee were going on a trip to Tampa for work-related reasons. But in reality, Caylee was regularly going out, partying and socializing. When her friends asked about Caylee, she said that Caylee was either with the nanny or on a trip. As days turned into weeks, without any sign of Caylee or any news about her well-being, Cindy grew increasingly worried. She reached out to Caylee multiple times, but Caylee gave false excuses and never gave a straight answer regarding the whereabouts of her daughter. By this time, her grandparents were really worried. They were used to seeing their granddaughter every other day, and now it had been weeks since they had last seen her. On July 15, 2008, Cindy again asked Casey about her granddaughter. This time, she was persistent. Casey again said that Caylee was with Zanny the nanny. Cindy then demanded that Casey drive her to the nanny's place, so they both got in the car. After driving around for a while, Casey finally broke down and gave up the false pretense of the nanny. She admitted that she had lied about Caylee's whereabouts, and she was actually missing. Cindy was furious and horrified at the same time after learning that Caylee had been missing for 31 days. Caylee Anthony made the decision to call 911. In an emotional call, she reported that her granddaughter was missing and also shared her concerns regarding Casey's careless behavior. She also stated this comment regarding Casey's car: "It smells like there's been a dead body in that damn car."
My daughter finally admitted that the baby's in the store. I need to find her.
Your daughter admitted that the baby is where?
But the babysitter took her a month ago. My daughter's been looking for her. I told you my daughter was missing for a month. I just found her today, but I can't find my granddaughter. And she just admitted to me that she's been trying to find her herself. There's something wrong. I found my daughter's car today, and it smells like there's been a dead body in the damn car.
Okay, what is the 3-year-old's name?
Caylee, Caylee, Anthony.
Caylee Anthony?
Yes.
How long has she been missing for?
I have not seen her since the 7th of June.
Is your daughter there?
Yes.
Can I speak with her?
She's downstairs. They want to talk to you. Answer the question. Hello?
Hello?
Yes.
Can you tell me what's going on a little bit?
I'm sorry?
Can you tell me a little bit what's going on?
My daughter's been missing for the last 31 days.
Cindy's call marked the beginning of an intense investigation into Caylee's disappearance. When police arrived at the Anthony home, they began questioning Casey. Again, she gave the nanny excuse and stated that the nanny had kidnapped her daughter. Investigators quickly found out that no such nanny existed. They found the apartment where Casey claimed Zenaida, the nanny, lived, and discovered that it had been abandoned for over 140 days. As detectives continued their investigation, they discovered even more discrepancies in Casey's narrative. She claimed that she had a job at Universal Studios, so the detectives took her to the theme park to see her supposed workplace. However, it quickly became clear that she had been lying. One detective pointed out that everything she had told them was a lie, stating, "Everything that's coming out of your mouth is a lie." They had already verified that she had not worked at Universal Studios since 2006. On July 16, 2008, just one day after Caylee was reported missing, Casey was arrested. She faced charges of child neglect, making false official statements, and obstructing an investigation. The authorities declared her a person of interest in Caylee's disappearance. On August 27, 2008, police tested samples from her car, which successfully detected human remains. As news of Caylee's disappearance spread, it quickly became a media sensation. The public was shocked by the story of the missing toddler and Casey's carefree lifestyle during the time Caylee was missing. Everyone began advocating for the child, whose own mother did not care enough. Reports surfaced about Casey partying with friends and even getting a tattoo that read Bella Vita, or Beautiful Life, right after Caylee went missing. This angered the masses even more. The search for Caylee. While Casey was under justified public scrutiny, the search efforts to locate Casey were ongoing. Volunteers and law enforcement searched through wooded areas near the Anthony home in hopes of finding any clues. But sadly, weeks passed with no sign of Caylee. Finally, on December 11, 2008, a meter reader named Roy Kronk discovered a plastic bag containing human remains in a wooded area near the Anthony's family home. On December 19th, it was confirmed that those were Caylee's remains. The grandparents and general public, who had hoped for Caylee's safe return, were crushed by the devastating news. After the remains were discovered, an autopsy was performed. The medical examiner determined that Caylee had died from undetermined causes, but found duct tape on her skull, which suggested foul play. So, in October 2008, Caylee Anthony was charged with first-degree murder, aggravated manslaughter, and aggravated child abuse. The prosecution wanted to pursue the death penalty, claiming that Caylee had intentionally harmed her daughter. Can you imagine the tension? The trial. As the trial approached, Caylee's defense team started creating their strategy. They argued that Caylee's death was actually an accident, that she drowned in the family pool, and that Caylee panicked and disposed of her body. They even claimed that Caylee had been sexually abused by her father, George Anthony, which allegedly contributed to her irrational behavior. Caylee even went as far as stating that her brother also abused her. It seemed as if she was making up any excuse possible in order to avoid being charged as guilty. Fast forward to May 24, 2011, when the trial officially began. It was like a reality show. Everyone was glued to their screens. The courtroom was packed with people eager to see what would unfold. During opening statements, the prosecution painted Caylee as a neglectful mother who murdered her daughter to escape her responsibilities and prioritized partying over parenting. The public even coined it as a late-term abortion because it seemed obvious that she had deliberately tried to escape the responsibilities of motherhood. George Anthony took the stand too, expressing his grief over losing Caylee and denying the abuse allegations against Caylee. Forensic experts testified about evidence from Caylee's car, including decaying hair samples and that duct tape found on Caylee's remains. This evidence really tied Caylee to her daughter's death. After 33 days of testimonies from both sides, it all came down to closing arguments in early July 2011. The prosecution urged jurors to consider all the circumstantial evidence pointing to Caylee's guilt, while the defense stuck with their claim of accidental drowning. Then came July 5, 2011, the day everyone had been waiting for. After just over 10 hours of deliberation, the jury delivered their verdict. Not guilty on charges of first-degree murder, aggravated manslaughter, and aggravated child abuse. However, they did find her guilty of 4 counts of providing false information to law enforcement. The verdict shocked everyone. People were outraged. Many felt justice hadn't been served for little Caylee. It sparked heated debates across the country about accountability and a flawed justice system. When it came to sentencing, Caylee received 4 years in prison for providing false information, but got credit for time served since she had already spent 3 years in jail awaiting the trial. She walked free on July 17, 2011. The aftermath of this case left a huge mark on society. It led to open discussions about reforms about missing children cases. Some states even passed Caylee's law, making it a felony not to report a missing child promptly. Let's take a look at the likely theories that emerge from this case, based on the evidence and the claims of the defense and prosecution. Kidnapping by the nanny. This theory, as presented by Caylee, was clearly a fabricated one, as there was no nanny who took care of Caylee that day. No evidence points toward this nanny ever existing, hence this theory is furthest from the truth. Even if there was an alleged nanny who killed Caylee, it is unlikely that a killer would dispose of the remains so close to the Anthony's home. Since this was a highly baseless theory, let's take it off our list. Premeditated murder. This theory suggests that Caylee Anthony intentionally killed her daughter. The prosecution argued that Caylee used chloroform to incapacitate Caylee and then suffocated her with duct tape. This is backed by the evidence of computer searches on the family computer, where someone had looked up chloroform and neck breaking. The prosecution focused on the presence of duct tape on Caylee's remains and the decomposition evidence found in Casey's car. Forensic experts testified that the hair found in the car trunk was Caylee's and that it showed signs of decomposition. Accidental drowning. This was a poorly constructed theory proposed by the defense, stating that Caylee accidentally drowned in the family pool. They argued that Casey panicked after discovering her daughter's body and made poor decisions in a state of shock. However, this theory also suggests that the grandparents were involved in the cover-up, which Cindy and Anthony denied. The defense showed photos of Caylee opening a screen door and presented photos of her playing in the pool to show that the theory was highly plausible. However, there was not much physical evidence to back this theory up, so it's more on the speculative side. By now, you may have realized that it's obvious what most likely happened in this case. Based on the evidence presented during the trial, most people lean toward the idea that foul play was involved in Caylee Anthony's death. Most of the evidence clearly points towards Casey. However, due to the details that emerged in the trial, the involvement of the grandparents was not entirely ruled out. Hence, the conflicting narratives blaming the grandparents likely clouded the judgment of the jurors, which is why Casey managed to get away scot-free. What most likely happened was that Casey was careless and negligent with her daughter. Whether she took her parents' help or not, she was responsible for Caylee's death. According to reports, Casey confided in fellow inmates that she sometimes used drugs to make Caylee sleep so she could go out and party. One inmate, Robin Adams, claimed that Casey wrote to her about using stuff to put Caylee to sleep and specifically mentioned using antihistamines. This theory is further supported by her behavior, the computer searches, and the car sample analysis, which proved the presence of decaying hair and chloroform. There's a chance it wasn't premeditated murder, but that doesn't change the fact that Casey was directly responsible. Overall, it's a tragic case that leaves a lot of unanswered questions, but it is obvious that Caylee Anthony got away with murder. Prosecuting attorney Jeff Ashton stated, "There was so much evidence in this case. The jury acquitted her because they didn't want to convict her. That's the bottom line.